Hello and welcome to my next devlog. Remember when I said this? On top of that, this idea was really big. Like, I had some pretty good ideas for mechanics and storyline. The initial idea for this game was to have a time-dashing samurai killing enemies while the time is frozen, so this is definitely going to be one of the main parts of the combat. However, having the time stop permanently just sounds extremely boring and the player wouldn't have to train their reflex to be good at a game. In other words, the game would be just too easy. So I decided to make it so that the player can stop time every once in a while to avoid that. Oh, by the way, I called this mechanic time dashing because the player will also have a movement speed buff when the time is frozen to indicate his speed. So first things first, I made this little animation for starting and finishing the time dash. This would indicate to the player that the rules of the game are about to change now and it is the perfect time to prepare for that. So yeah, this is the little animation now I was talking about. Just a little sword grab and a little spin and, you know, something that looks cool and edgy. Yes, pun was definitely intended. Back on track though, the game is heavily based on this time-bending theme. So to emphasize this, I wanted to make it so that the whole world around the player changes when he enters a time dash. This would also make this mechanic a lot cooler than it was already intended to be. So I made this quick monkey brain color swap pixel shader that will make the world look a little bit like you're in a different universe. On top of that, I made it so the player leaves this cool looking color tray behind him. Just look at it. Pretty neat, huh? It was also fairly easy to implement. Every X amount of milliseconds the player would just spawn a visual effect. This visual effect is just a static image of the current frame that the player had. Each visual effect created like this would have different color to just make it look a little bit interesting. It is also a little bit transparent and its transparency gradually increases with time, until it just disappears. And at this point we just delete the effect to free our memory, so we won't end up with millions of these effects. Next thing I needed to make is to actually stop the time. My approach for this was to go through each object and if it's not our player and has something like animation or velocity, just save it within the given object for later use. Then you would need to of course stop animating the given object and set its velocity to 0. This way the object just stops moving. And when the time dash ends, you just iterate through all of the objects and see if they have any data saved. If the given object has something saved in it, just make the saved parameter his actual parameter. Also, remember to clean the saved parameter afterwards so you won't run into any errors. And that's it. So far I've been talking about all of this, but there is still no action in it. So let's change that. My idea is that when the player is time dashing, the punch that I implemented in my last episode would be replaced by a sword swing. That sword swing would be the main way to finally defeat the enemies, instead of just temporarily disabling them. So yeah, the first approach was to add this little sword swing animation and attach it to the player, because I want to preserve this feeling of fast movement. I then made it so that all enemies hit will get slashed after our protagonist ends the time dash. So basically you go swing, time stop, into action, into back to reality, into whoosh whoosh, into epic moment. So after making this, I recorded a quick video showing the things that I just added on Reddit. And by my ridiculously small standards, it got pretty big, but most importantly, I got some feedback. Some people pointed out that the slash looks a little bit weird, and I definitely agree with this. Another person mentioned that there should be a bar that fills and when it's full, the player can time dash. And that's exactly what I was thinking about. Someone also mentioned that it reminds him of Hotline Miami, and I felt really proud because that was exactly the vibe that I was going for. So yeah, I made some iterations of the UI that would be in the upper left corner and would show how much time the player needs to wait to time dash. In the end, I settled on this design, it just looks the best in my opinion. So here's how it looks in game. When the bar is filled, it will start rapidly changing colors to notify the player that the next punch will make the world enter the stasis effect. It was all looking cool, but I wanted to make it look super cool. So I decided to change the way the player attacks to make it feel even more anime-like. Instead of just swinging his sword, the samurai would dash forward while making a swing and landing on the ground in an epic looking pose. I made animations for this and here's how they look. But I needed to make it even more epic, so I added a little effect that will make the game pause for a brief moment after you hit an enemy. It will also show a frame with the player just performing the strike, enemy, and blood splashing back from the point where he's getting hit. Anyway, enough of talking, here's how all of this looks in game. So yeah, this is the main gimmick of the game. There you go. Do you like it? Is there something you would change? Do let me know in the comments. Also, I would like to thank you for all your feedback that I got under my previous video and Reddit posts. I'm really glad that someone likes my work and would like to know how it turns out. I'm super happy to read all of your comments that I get under these little videos I make. So yeah, thanks! So with that being said, this is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it, and if you did, you can subscribe to follow my progress on the game. So yeah, that's all for today, and I will see you all in the next devlog. Bye!